Hi everyone, welcome to the MrpTech podcast. This is episode 91. My name is Matt and this is the weekly podcast discussing everyday tech for everyday people. Thanks again for tuning in this week. Before I start the show, I would like to give a enormous thank you to all of you that have been listening to the last few episodes. For the last few episodes, I mentioned that I was getting ready to become a part of the Amazon affiliate program. And I needed some help going to my website, having people click on the Amazon link and make a couple purchases from Amazon.com. And basically what that does is it not only gets me a part of the Amazon affiliate program, but I sort of use it as a sponsorship link. And it doesn't cost anybody any extra, but I do get a small kickback from all the purchases made by using that link on my website. So thanks for going to mrptechreviews.com and hitting that Amazon button. It really did help me out, and I'm now officially part of the Amazon affiliate program. And I really am thankful for all of you who did that for me this past week, the few of you that did it. I couldn't thank you enough for doing that. This week is kind of a fun episode, but I do have a couple of things I'd like to clear up first before we get into all that. First of all, you may recall that over the last few months, I switched website hosting providers. And I didn't do it just for this show and for MrpTech reviews, but what I did do, I had 3 different websites that I was switching from Wix to another provider. And basically, I did it all at the same time, and really enjoying the extra power and flexibility that I have switching to HostGator. The problem is that over the last few months, I've been saying to go to the website and hit the contact form, and I didn't realize that my contact form wasn't working at all. And in fact, I thought I remember testing it and making sure it didn't work, or that it did work, and turns out it wasn't working correctly. All that has been taken care of this week. So if you've tried to use the contact form on the website, it apparently when you submitted it, just submitted it to the universe and never made it into my inbox. So if you did try to use the contact form, I apologize. I wasn't aware it wasn't even working, and I wasn't getting any error messages. So the contact form is now working properly on the website. And if you have comments to the shows, please write them in. If I didn't get back to you, or if I don't ever get back to you, there's probably a reason, and it's probably not my fault. Well, it is my fault, but it isn't me just ignoring you completely and not getting back to you. I'm also trying something new. On just underneath the contact form on the website, there's a feedback segment, and I really am interested in auditing the show and seeing what I can do better. If you click on that feedback link, it's a real quick 5-question feedback type of submission that you can send to me to help me out and give me ideas on what you think works for the show, what you think doesn't work for the show, and any ideas you can feel free to send that at any point in time, and I'd be glad to take a look at it and take it quite seriously, to try to better the show. So I've gotten a couple of submissions so far, and I'm really interested in what we come up with over the next few weeks as people listen to this episode. So feel free to do that as well. So this week, I am on spring break, and just a few days ago, one of the first sort of to-do items on my list was to, first of all, go out and get my oil changed in my car, put a lot of miles on my car. And with that, my objective was to also exchange my winter tires for all-season tires and get a few odds and ends done around the house in the process. Well, on Saturday, what I did is I got in my car and I drove over to one of my sheds on my property and got my tires out. And the first set of tires, I moved the tires and completely threw my back out. So that was a great start to vacation. And so over the last few days, I have been pretty much immobile and not doing a whole lot. I did get the oil changed and the tires rotated, but that was about it. And really haven't done a whole lot over the last few days. And with that, going into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you some thoughts on some Linux distributions that you can install on a flash drive and bring with you everywhere. And now, last week I mentioned 2 of them, and I want to talk about them a little bit more in detail in this episode, and then bring up a third option. And let's see by the end which one that I decided to go with to sort of carry around full time with me. So the first one I want to take a look at is SliTaz Linux. And SliTaz is a really small download file. It's about 50 megabytes. And it's basically the idea here is you have a simple and you have a fast and a low resource Linux OS for servers and desktops that you could install on a USB key and have it be speedy, full usable install. You can install it on a hard drive if you want to. You can use a live CD. In this case, it's a fully featured working graphical Linux distro, but in a very small and tiny package. So it's available in like 4 different flavors. Okay, you have a base install, you have an X install, GTK only, and you have a full desktop. You can boot it from the web, and you can customize it to meet any needs that you have on old computers or powerful servers or even ARM devices for Raspberry Pi. SliTaz is actually really easy to use. They say that they want to be easy for use for Linux beginners and also comply with all the free desktop standards that are out there. I don't know. It can be easy to use, but if you've never used it in Linux before and you're not sure about how to say write ISO files to a flash drive or something like that, you may have a little trouble and you may have to dive a little deeper in order to be able to get it up and running. But it does run completely from RAM, so having it on a USB stick or some sort of low sized hard drive would be something that might suit your needs for something specific that you have in mind. So basically, the root file system itself takes up about 100 megabytes, and out of the box, it doesn't have a whole lot. Using web browsers with Midori or Firefox, you have an audio player, CD ripper, and mail clients, things like that. But not a whole lot is built in with this. But you can build it to however you'd like to. Usually, when I'm trying Linux distros, I'm trying some of the more fully featured Linux distros that are out there, the more popular ones that have everything pre-installed for you. And now this isn't the case with SliTaz, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because you can build the system the way you want it to. SliTaz was recommended to me to take a look at. It is running OpenBox, which I don't usually use OpenBox for a lot of things. But it is very low in resources, or it runs well on computers that have low resources. So if this were going to be something that I carried around with me a lot and plugging into different hardware, might be something worth to give it a shot. What I might want to take a look at, though, is something that's a little bit more robust, something that may have a little bit more to it, a little bit more oomph to it. So I also started taking a look at Slax Linux, and Slax is the Pocket operating system. It's modern, it's portable, it's small and fast, and runs directly from a USB drive. And despite the small size, it does have basically 2 programs everyone needs: a terminal and a web browser. So you could get the software that you needed. And sort of build your system from there. Now, the Slax download is, I would say, approximately, I think it was like 270 megabytes off the top of my head. And it's based off Debian. So those who are familiar with Debian systems like Ubuntu or Linux Mint probably would have a better experience with this. And it's available in a 32-bit version, a 64-bit version, and also an IPXE download too, which that kind of surprised me. It's a very small a 0.9 megabyte file. When I tried this, I was pretty impressed with it. There's no need for a permanent install at all with this. Basically, the entire Slax operating system resides in a single directory, and it makes it easy to organize your other data. You get the Fluxbox window manager, and you get Chromium, Xterm, and a few other very small things included, like a calculator and a text editor. But it can run on a wide range of different file systems, ext2, 3, and 4, BTRFS, even the FAT and NTFS file systems, which I thought was kind of cool. Now, when you first start it, it is in sort of a read-only mode, but you can set some persistence, and they do have documentation on their website to store your files and anything else that you want to on that flash drive itself. What's great about this is it's designed to run on old hardware and new hardware as well. So again, if you're plugging in, if you're bringing a flash drive everywhere you go, and you want to plug it into different types of hardware, this might be one of the better solutions for that portable OS. And the more time goes on, I'm kind of liking the idea of having a portable OS that I can bring just about anywhere. In fact, I've got a whole list of USB flash drives, repair disk, repair ISOs, other Linux distros that I've recommended in the past. I've used like Yummy before, the multi-boot, where you can install several different ISOs on one USB drive. I'm not sure if Yummy is still in development or not. There was also a multi-boot loader, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, that also was something that I've used to put multiple ISOs on one file, one USB drive, and sort of have like a toolkit that I carry around. Now I carry those around with me. Most of them are outdated at this point, having much older ISOs, and every so often I go through and I refresh them. Another use that I have for USB drives is portable apps. And for instance, in many cases, it's hard to install certain software on computers I use at work. But the portable apps work really great for things that I use every day. And the idea of having a portable OS that I can bring around with me sort of appeals in more cases than not to have something that I can bring with me just about everywhere and use it for multiple purposes, have all my files in one spot, rather than portable apps here or there and a whole pouch full of USB drives that aren't labeled and that aren't in any sort of organization at this point. So that idea started getting me to think more of what my actual uses would be for something like this, and a portable OS. And so here's where I'm going to take a small turn and sort of talk about some people that I've been working with lately have been difficult to get a hold of. And I've mentioned recently about building the ham shack at my school. Well, some of the people that I've been trying to work with to help me build this shack at school, they are people that are not usually on the internet, that have a very low presence just about anywhere. In fact, they are people that work with local law enforcement and help them, whether either computer forensics or electronic devices, or even getting radio equipment to work and that type of thing. So these are people that are very well sought out after in the Northeast, not just in my state. And this sort of made me wonder, if I were to take a look at my internet presence, what would I find? And I haven't done that yet. I'm sort of building a plan to sort of come from a different perspective and see what exactly my internet presence is out there. And my third choice here today kind of is coming from that perspective. So if I'm going to develop a portable operating system that has basically everything that I need installed on it, or I can install everything I need, what would be the best solution for that? And I think Tails is the best solution for something like this. Tails is a live operating system that you can start from almost any computer, USB stick or a DVD. Most of you out there are probably familiar with Tails, the Amnesic Incognito Live system. And basically, this is an operating system built for privacy and anonymity on the web and on specific hardware as well. So I recommend this with a grain of salt because it's supposed to be something to become anonymous on the internet, which I don't think is really possible. You have access to things like the Tor network and leaving no trace on your computer. Also uses state-of-the-art cryptography tools, so you can encrypt your files, emails, and instant messages, all packed in a tiny file that you can put on a USB drive and boot from basically any computer. And much like Slax, Tails is built off of Debian. It is free software, and any internet traffic is sent through Tor if you're using the Tor web browser itself. And so that's where I sort of ended up this week. Not because I wanted to become anonymous or circumvent censorship of any kind, but I wanted to have a portable operating system that I could bring with me anywhere and have a really powerful tool in my pocket. Now, I think there are many resources out there, and if you're looking to learn more about Tails, you can look on their website. They talk about why they need something like Tor, how it works. There's also great documentation too when you boot up into Tails. It explains everything that you need to know, what it does, what it doesn't do, and what to expect from something like this. Tails is basically configured so that it doesn't interact with the computer's hard disks. Even if there are some swap space or anything like that, the only storage space Tails uses is in RAM, and it's automatically erased when the computer shuts down. So you're not going to leave any trace on the computer itself, and that's where the term amnesic comes in from. So the problem is that you need to know how to use all of these tools. So that's why it's important to understand the security limitations of Tails and Tor. And really, I think it's just, I would express a word of caution if you are intending to use something like Tails for like the dark web or anything like that, because even using something like Tor will get you noticed to some extent. So my plan is I sort of want to use Tails over the next few weeks to sort of explore this online presence and see what I can come up with, coming from a sort of security perspective, or a perspective of, let's say, how much you wanted to find out how much of my own information is out there, and pretending to be someone else trying to access that information. I think that's a really that's something that everybody should do, and try to see exactly how far out their information goes, and what you can sort of come from all that information. So that's going to be sort of my next project, is trying that for fun and seeing what I can come up with. How about you guys? Have you guys ever seen or ever used Tails or Slax or SliTaz? And what are your favorite uses for it? I would love to hear your perspective. I'd love to hear what you've got and what use cases you use from that. So ultimately, this show is, I'm only 50% of the show, and I'd always love to hear feedback from everybody. So if you're a Linux user and you're using a specific Linux distro, you can write in and let me know what you're using it for. I'd love to put it on the show. It gives me things to talk about. if you carry around a USB drive with a Linux distro on it for specific reasons, write into the show. Let me know what you use them for. I'm always looking for ideas, looking for new ways to use these live disks and live environments. Definitely something that piques my interest. And even every few weeks, it seems like I have a use for a live environment for some reason. I always keep a flash drive on me, and I'm really interested in what I can do with Tails. And maybe next week I'll spend a little bit more time talking about Tails and what I've come to find out with it. And I thanks for the recommendations to everybody who recommended a Linux distro to get into for this time around. And so SliTaz and Slax are definitely tools in a tool belt. They're not, each of them have a specific interest in mind for why they exist. And so just because I sort of kind of rolled with Tails for a little while doesn't mean that Slax or SliTaz aren't good for certain reasons. And this is sort of where I ended up over the last few weeks. So I'm going to continue on this path of taking a look at Tails, and I'll let you know what comes of it. And in the meantime, those of you who are longtime listeners of the show, I mentioned earlier that my Amazon affiliate page is up on mrptechreviews.com. I do have a Patreon page. I don't talk about it very often. Patreon.com/mrptech. That's the way you can support this show directly. Or using the Amazon affiliate link on the website. And you can also go to patreon.com/podnuts if you want to support the Podnuts network for all of their hosting needs and keeping all of these shows on the Podnuts network. Well over 10 shows on the Podnuts network. I'm not exactly sure what the number is off the top of my head, but there are a lot of shows on Podnuts, and many of them doing live shows, many of them weekly shows, and so go to patreon.com/podnuts and you can support the whole network as a whole as well. And with that said, that's going to do it for this week. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.